Well, Mark, once a baggy, now very much a villain. Great to have you at the club. First of all, how's it been for you so far?
Yeah, it's been fantastic actually. The welcome that I've had from everybody, right from the top all the way around the training ground, everybody, I have to say, has really made me feel part of what's going on already. I feel like I've been here for much longer than the 2-week period that I have. All the way through the training ground, there really seems to be a culture of everybody's working together in the same direction. So I've had a real good feeling about the place. I have to say, I had a staff meeting with all the staff last Friday and said to them, you know, I thank them for the way that they made me feel welcome and been very open with me in terms of where we're at as an academy. So I've got to say, the honeymoon period has been good so far, but let's wait and see what the future brings.
That's good to hear. So why Aston Villa? Why have you made the move to this club?
I think as a local person myself, you know, you've always seen Aston Villa as arguably the biggest club in the area, and with its history and tradition, you know, winning the European Cup, the league, I kind of grew up in that era, so I've always had a sense of the tradition and the size of the football club. I think what really drew me here though as well was the potential now. You can see with the owners and the senior management at the football club, the vision that they have. Having met them on more than one occasion as part of the interview process, I've got a real good feel for how they wanted to build not only the football club but the academy, and I think we share so many similar values, and most importantly is the vision. You know, I've very much been part of that, certainly early on at West Brom when Dan Ashworth worked there as technical director, and he had a great vision for the academy and the football club there. And having met Christian and Suso and Dean, you know, it was almost like, you know, 4 band of brothers, if you like, together. You know, I was really impressed with the way that they sold the football club to me as well.
People look at the role, the job title, academy manager, and maybe within football they know what it is, but perhaps can you explain to the fans what it will entail and what perhaps the day-to-day responsibilities are? Yeah,
it's a fantastic question. I think people don't realise what a monster it's grown into now. You have between 30 and 40 full-time staff to manage, a multidisciplinary team. So that includes an education and a player care team, sports science and medical team, a coaching team, an analysis team, an operations and administration team. So my job is to ensure that all of those areas are working together, they're integrated, they're functioning well, making sure that we're striving to move forwards, but always never lose sight that it's always about the player and the player development. So making sure that each player has their own individual development plan. That's going to ensure that hopefully, you know, if they don't quite achieve to get to our first team, which, you know, is a massive challenge with us being a Premier League club, and hopefully moving forwards from not just being a Premier League club, but a club that are going to compete in Europe. When you think that we're recruiting from all over the world, that's what we're competing against. So ensuring that, like I said, all those departments don't lose sight of integrating and working together for the benefit of the player. The recruitment department is a massive part of what we need to do, because there's some very core principles that I believe in and very simple to say but very difficult to achieve. But, you know, if you get your recruitment right and then you get the right development programs in place for the players and you employ the right staff, the last bit of that is just to get the pathway right. So the link with the first team is critical to that. So the relationship between myself and certainly the staff who work at the higher end of the academy with the under-18s and under-23s, our relationship with the first team staff is crucial. I've found in the past that if you build up that trust and rapport, then you've got every chance of hopefully bringing a few of the players through as well.
In terms of what you achieved down the road, how proud of you of what you did achieve? And, you know, the way you did it, the manner in which you did it, can you take things that you learnt there and you developed there and your own skill set into this job at Aston Villa?
Yeah, definitely, I'd like to think so. I think the first thing to point out is that what happened at West Bromwich Albion was the work of many people. I think I was just fortunate to lead a very dedicated group of people, and I think we were relentless in terms of making sure that everything we did was done with a consistency, and always with the player at the heart of it. It was all about how could we develop the player, so we were very selfless. I think it's also very important to be humble. So I've never really been one to really talk about the successes of West Brom unless I was asked to do so, if you like, and even did that reluctantly, because I think the players should do the talking for you. But as I left West Bromwich Albion, they had quite a bit of feedback about their productivity. So for the last 3 seasons, they were ranked in the top 5 in the country in terms of the players that they'd produced now for the professional game. Top 5 for England youth internationals. I think the most important thing about that all, though, was that the vast majority of those players were born very local and were integrated into the academy and the football club at a very young age. And from a business model as well, we left the club, the academy, having made quite a bit of money for the football club as well. So, there are 2 sides to an academy. The club invests a lot of money into an academy, so you want to recoup that investment and equally produce players for the first team. So it was built up on the lowest, a very low budget as well. So we started with absolutely hardly anything, and each year slowly and gradually built it up to an academy that I think was competitive right across the country. They had a lot of success in different tournaments, both in England and abroad, and most recently, they played against Man City in the semi-final of the FA Youth Cup. And the quite ironic thing about that was all 11 of those players were born within an hour of West Bromwich Albion, and they were playing against a team that had 3 Spanish players, etc., etc. So I think that, I left there with a lot of things that people could hopefully build on and take forwards as well.
You've talked about the vision of the owners. How much are you looking forward to working with them, with Christian Purslow, the chief executive, and with Suso? Because they seem to be very much together in what they want to achieve for the football club, and I'm sure you share those opinions.
Again, I think even though I've worked a long time at one football club previously, I've been fortunate enough to speak to people at other clubs, speak to other chief executives, etc., and get a feel for how other clubs work. And I have to say the work and the vision and the way that Christian and Suso and Dean are all joined up, and how much they want to make sure that I'm joined up with them is really exciting, I think, for the football club. I have to say I've been nothing but impressed, and people say, well, of course I'm going to say this, that they're my bosses, but honestly I was enthused from the first time I met Christian and Suso, the knowledge of an academy that they understood, and 1 or 2 little details that they said to me about our academy made me really understand that they did have a clear insight. Sometimes people can be detached from the academy at football clubs, but Christian and Suso are far from that. And I know, and the good thing about me is I know I'm going to be challenged in the role as well, and I'm going to be asked about why are we doing this, could we do this, how could we do this, but equally they want to support it in the right way. And give time as well. They understand that it will take time. People will say, well, you're always going to say that because you're protecting yourself. But no, to get an academy up to a level where we're producing Premier League players regularly will take time. And the way that may be, the influences that I'll bring into the academy will be slightly different to probably what's been here historically. That's not to say what happened previously was wrong. It's just that maybe I have a different perspective on things. But that vision that I have is shared very much so by Suso and Christian. But I have to say the football club are in some really good hands there, and it's a really exciting time for all departments, I feel.
I'm not sure whether so soon into the role you necessarily set specific targets, but do you have any short-term, medium-term and long-term goals?
Yeah, definitely. I think in the short term is to make sure that all the staff in the academy were working to the same goals and the same vision. Sometimes departments can get detached a little bit from each other. So what I've got to do in the short term is bring all the departments together, and that will be through a process of what we call CPD training, staff meetings, to ensure that we're all very clear on what an Aston Villa player needs to look like for the future and how each department supports that and works together. So the short term is everybody's got to be very clear on that. and what the demands are that I expect, you know, in terms of the demands I put on people and how we're going to achieve that. So that's definitely the short term. The medium term is to make sure that we're competitive, so we can recruit players. That Aston Villa are an academy that are well respected throughout the country. So, you know, if we approach a player somewhere in the country, but we're competing with, you know, the so-called big academies, the Chelseas, the Man Cities, the Arsenals, the Liverpools, and equally locally, you know, we've got to make sure that locally Aston Villa are the club that everybody wants to come to. West Bromwich Albion, a player left West Bromwich Albion to go to Barcelona. He lives in Sutton Coldfield. He's a Villa fan. His dad's a Villa fan. So that just can't happen in the future. And then long term, it's quite clear we've got to be producing players for the first team on a regular basis, and also make the academy sustainable, that it's at least breaking even, if hopefully making money as well. Although the argument there would be is that if we're a top 8 football club, we don't really want to be selling our best players anyway. You know, we don't want to sell a Jack Grealish, do we? So why would we want to in the future sell any of our academy players coming through?